We've all felt pressure at some point in our life, whether that's from work or school or a relationship where things just aren't working out. We've all felt the pressure. And for many of us, pressure comes from these external forces, these things happening outside of us, rather than internally. But over these last couple of months, I've been toying with this idea, this question. The question being, what would happen if everybody put more pressure on themselves? I truly believe that the world itself would become a much better place. We would have more advancements in different areas of life. We would have fewer mental health issues, increased sense of purpose. I think we'd have more creative insights. We'd have a lot of problems suddenly solved out of nowhere because people put pressure on themselves. And I think by and large, people would socialize in a more harmonious manner than what we currently are. Look, maybe I'm being naive. Maybe I'm overly optimistic. I'm just living in this fantasy land. But I think this is something we really need, to put more pressure onto ourselves as individuals. The problem is that many people are too distracted and sedated to really care about what's happening around them. People feel as though, hey, as long as I have my entertainment, as long as I can order food to my door whenever I want, as long as I have TV and social media and video games and all these other things within my life, then I really don't care. Now, of course, people won't consciously admit that, but subconsciously, deep within your nervous system, this is how your body reacts. As long as you feel safe and secure and comfortable and things are going status quo and predictable within your life, then you won't feel compelled to put more pressure on yourself and do things that are a little beyond your comfort zone. When you put pressure on yourself and when you step beyond your comfort zone, you're bound to make the same mistakes. You're bound to do things you shouldn't do. You're bound to say things you shouldn't say. But also, along that same line of thinking, if you're somebody who can put yourself out there, you inevitably open up the door to so many opportunities that you're not even consciously aware of right now. You don't even know that they're possible until you begin to take those steps beyond what's known. Over these last couple of years, this has been something I've been very intentional about. You know, it's not to say that I'm perfect, and nobody is perfect, but all we can do is make those small choices day by day, and that adds up. It's the aggregation of gains, you could say. Things continue to improve in multiple areas of life with all of these micro decisions that you make to put more pressure on yourself. A great example of somebody who put a lot of pressure on themselves within their life to constantly go beyond their comfort zone is Miyamoto Musashi. I think I said his name right. He was a swordsman and a writer and a philosopher. He wrote this book called The Book of Five Rings. He talked about his life as a swordsman, living in isolation, always on the go, traveling, and literally fighting people to the death with a sword. It's crazy, right? Nobody forced Miyamoto to live that life. He chose to live that life because that's what he felt compelled to do. That was, from his perspective, if I had to guess, the highest pursuit of him putting pressure on himself and doing things for not only for himself, but for the greater good. Living in alignment with his most authentic version. Now, of course, that's an extreme approach. I'm not saying in order to put pressure on yourself and live your best life, you should become a swordsman and an assassin. No, I'm not saying that at all. But there are things all of us collectively could do as a society and as individuals that will propel us forward. And it all starts by putting pressure onto yourself. I think a great example of this is in modern times is somebody like David Goggins. Now, of course, he's an extremist and he runs all the time and he rides bikes and he has this big, loud persona on social media, which never shows the full picture, all right? Because there are days when even that guy is like, holy crap, my legs are so sore, I can't run. There are days when he's not feeling his best. And of course, there's a downside to being too one-sided in terms of putting pressure on yourself and pushing forward and having discipline, because that will only take you so far until you burn out, inevitably. But there's no denying how much that guy's life has changed because of the pressure he put on himself for all these years. You don't need to do this. You don't need to put pressure on yourself. You don't need to change. You can continue doing things exactly as they are right now, and that's cool. Your life, live it however you want to live it. But What I'll say is that we're living in times where it's never been easier to indulge in comfort. It's never been easier to push your problems aside and just do what feels good in the moment. I know because I've been there. You can just look around in society and observe how most people live. But if you're somebody who really wants to make these changes within your life, keep in mind that nothing changes if nothing changes. You can come up with these grand plans. You can write out vision boards and in your journal and do all these things up here at the imaginary level, thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to travel here, I'm going to pursue that new skill, learn this new hobby. But if you don't take action, if you don't put enough pressure on yourself to the point where you're willing to take action, then nothing changes. Fyodor Dostoevsky once said that people need some sort of chaos, some sort of turmoil within their life. He argued that if we had too much comfort, too much convenience, then we will inevitably find a way to sabotage that so we can have some sort of chaos and discomfort within our lives. And we're seeing that firsthand. I think a lot of people will go too far on the pleasure-seeking side with too much doom scrolling, too much drinking, too much watching TV, too much smoking, all these things. They feel good in the moment, but don't help them medium to long term. And many people, from my experience, from people I've met, people I've worked with, they will go so far to the point where they hit rock bottom, and then they'll sabotage all of those self-serving behaviors, and then realize like, okay, I really got to change my ways and put the work in. The thing is, you don't need to get to that point. You don't need to hit rock bottom in order to start implementing new routines, start trying new skills, start learning new things, meeting new people. No, it just takes a willingness to put some degree of pressure on yourself and actually move forward with confidence into that pressure. So, yeah, create your own goals, determine your own deadlines, and move with a purpose, all right? Because nobody else will do it for you. It all comes down to you. So, hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching. I'll speak to you soon.